after a few years, that was exactly what God had called me to do. And, you know, that might just be, none of you, some of you here haven't been outdoors door before, that might just be what happens to you today. If you come out with us this afternoon, it might continue, it might not be, but it might be. So has anyone here done doors to door before? I know Stuart's been out a couple of times. Yeah, okay. Yeah, it is a bit frightening to start with, but when we listen well, and we get the earn the right to be able to speak a little bit as well. So we're going to go through the session. Can we get up, click it a couple of times, please? Yeah, the area we're visiting. We're going through a few practical things to start with. Probably not your normal way of meeting people, knocking on their door. But we're doing this because we know the gospel can and will change people's lives. Some houses have a sticker on saying, no this, no that, no the other. I ignore that, but as soon as they answer the door, I say, with a smile on my face, I say, oh hello, I'm just calling from the church down the road. We're delivering some good news to everyone in your street. We didn't want to miss you out. And then hand it over to them. And people generally find that very acceptable. Very rarely does anyone complain and say, oh, what about my sticker? Because you've given the reason why you knocked anyway. So, hello there. So that's what I do. So going from door to door, my experience is that it gives wonderful gospel opportunities. That's my experience over the years. In our church years ago, we did something called the Jesus Video Project, where there was a video of the Gospel of Luke, and we decided we'd deliver it to every house in our village, about 10,000 houses. And to start with, there was me and Lizzie and one other couple. We went on a training course, picked a street, one street each, and we knocked on each door, and the idea was you'd offer them a free video they could keep, on the understanding you could go back and ask them what they thought about it about a week or so later. And we did this, and we had some really good conversations. So then we said, can anyone else come and join with us? And I think next time there were 4 couples went out. And each time we came back sharing stories of how exciting it was. And in the end, there was 20 couples went out at the height of our thing from the church of about 200. And I thought that was absolutely amazing. To start with, everyone was scared, but as people shared how their experiences, it encouraged more and more people to come out. So it's not as difficult as it sounds. So next slide, please. So call it every door. Yeah, done that one. Next one. Is this out of your comfort zone? Well, probably it is. It was for me the first time I did it. But as I say, once you get going, it's not as daunting as it sounds. Next slide, please. So we're going to go through some easy steps. Next slide. So to start with, we've got to know where we're going to be visiting. So I think Stuart's already chosen some roads we can do locally. There was a church in Newcastle who got together with a lot of other churches up there, and they decided they were going to deliver Luke's Gospel to every house in Newcastle. I think it was 124,000 houses. And not only were they going to knock on the door once, they were going to knock on the door twice if they weren't in the first time. And I would encourage you to do that as well, because we want to get a friendly smile, a friendly Christian, giving someone some Christian literature. That's just a wonderful thing to be able to do. So it's a good thing to have something in your hands when you knock on the door, you get into a conversation, and to hand it over so we can leave them with some literature. So if they're not in, we could pop it through the door, but if you want to go back a second time, then pop it through the door if they're not in then. It's up to you what we do about that. But so we need to get our map out, work out what roads we're going to go to, and do it properly. If you're going to do it regularly, next slide please, I'd encourage you to have a badge with your name on it. This is Trevor, he's the area field officer for Wales and West of Midlands. He's just got his church name and church visitor. One I've got has got community visitor, but either of those titles are very acceptable. And if you've got a badge, it sort of gives you authority on that you've been recognised as a church visitor or a community visitor, and it gives you a bit more credibility. A couple of practical tips: when you go into someone's down through a gate, if the gate's locked, make sure you lock it behind you as you go in, because you don't want someone's dog or kid to run out onto the street. That happened to me once. I spent 15 minutes chasing after this dog and never actually spoke to the woman at the door at all. She was a bit stressed. So it's a good thing to shut the gate just in case. And as I said earlier, next slide, be ready to smile. A door-to-door salesman came to my house about 2 weeks ago, and he took 2 steps back from the door, and when I opened the door he had this big smile on his face, and he gave his opening comments. I can't remember what he said, but I was just drawn to it. He just seemed so friendly. I actually stepped out of the house to talk to him. Of course I had an ulterior motive to talk to him. I had one of those newspapers by the front door that I gave him as he went off. But I just learnt a lesson from them. He had good body language. He was square on, nice, open hands, smiley face, and he just gave really good body language. And we want to give people that sort of friendly smile that it breaks down barriers and helps people to be drawn towards you more. And it conveys you want to be friendly, not trying to push something on them or sell them something. Next slide. So when you're not going down the garden path, you want to know what you're going to say when the door's open. So we'll discuss this over lunch perhaps, what sentence you might want to use. A lot of the Outreach UK guys say, good morning, we're just visiting every home on your area, and we want to give you some good newspaper. And as you speak, you just gently hand over the paper. People generally will just take it when you hand it out like that. And then you might want to say something about the newspaper. I tend to say it's just stories of how God's touched people's lives. There's a focus on films, there's a recipe section, there's a chaplain's corner, and there's sport on the back. There's something for everyone. So yeah, you don't have to do that, but you might want to say something. Sometimes I go out and with a Gospel of John in my pocket, and I'm giving those out to people. Yeah. And as I hand it out, I say to them, just to say, the more I read that booklet, the more I realise how much God loves me. Yeah. And that's really quite a good thing to say, if you feel able to. But if you can get a booklet or a newspaper into someone's hand, that's really good. That's next slide. Yeah, as you speak, obviously booklet. So if that's all you want to do, then brilliant, job done. You can go to every house, have your opening sentence ready to share, hand over whatever it is you want to share, and it leaves people with a positive thought of the church. If that's all you want to do, then that's fine. However, as a door-to-door evangelist, I want to try and take the conversation a bit further. So we'll come on to that in a minute. But we need to keep a record card. Next slide. Yeah, that's it. And I've got some here brought with me that we can use this afternoon for those that are going out. And it's really, really important to keep a record, because especially if we're going to do it regularly, so that we know where we've been and who we've spoken to. So we put the street number at the top, and the date, and then there's a column for house numbers, and we put 0 if they're out, a tick if they're in, and a letter. If you've got a newspaper, maybe an N for a newspaper, or a gospel would be a G, whatever code you want to use. And if you've had a good conversation with someone, and you feel that they've shown some interest in the Christian faith, then you might put an F to say, to follow them up. And then you can put a PTO, turn the card over and write a little note of whatever you want to say to remind yourself when you go back to see them again. And put your names, visiting names on the bottom as well. So it's good for the same people to go back and visit them again, so they get that regular build-up of relationship. There was a survey done of 2,000 people who become Christians, and 80% of them have become Christian because someone has bothered to build a relationship with them.
Yeah.
That happened to me. The guy that built a relationship with me, I think he spoke to me twice, shared his testimony, and the next time the gospel, and that was it. I was quite quick, but a lot of people take a bit longer than that. But it's just building that relationship and going back and seeing them again. And as those relationships are built, as I say, statistics say it's a big plus towards someone crossing over the line from death to life, from not knowing who Jesus is to having that personal relationship with him. And there's nothing more exciting or important than doing that. Visiting times, I've included some visiting times here. Generally between 10 and 12:30 in the morning, and 2 and 4:30 in the afternoon is a good time. Or in the summer you could go out in the evening as well. But each area is different, so you could experiment. Sometimes I can keep going till 5:30 in the afternoon in the summer without any problem at all. So it depends on the area. If there's a lot of young mums, you might want to avoid school pick-up time. Or if there's lots of elderly people, maybe straight after lunch might be snooze time. So you can vary it a little bit. But I've found these days that there's a lot more people in. A lot of people work from home. And people that work from home, okay, they're busy, but they quite often value having someone to talk to for 2 or 3 minutes, 5 minutes, rather than just sitting at their computer doing whatever they do. So, next slide please. So as I mentioned just now about respecting space, step back a little bit, especially if we'll go out in twos, those that are going out, and step back a little bit, especially if there's 2 of you right at the door, it can be quite intimidating. And watch the body language. If they look nervous, you want to smile and say something friendly. Or we're just calling from local church to say hello, something like that, just to break the ice a little bit. And as you're walking down the garden path, next slide please, you might want to ask a question to get the conversation going a little bit. So to start with, you might want to say something general like, oh, how long have you lived here? What's the best thing about this area? just to get the conversation going before you then move on to spiritual questions. And when you're walking down the path, you might notice something in the garden you could talk about. A plant or a bush or a house name or a door knocker or a plaque on the wall or a camper van in the drive, whatever it is. Oh, that's an interesting bush you've got there. What type of bush is that? You just get. Well, you've got a lovely front garden. You must have spent a lot of time doing that. Just general chat to get people talking. To start with, I knocked on a door once, and the house name was Buttonhole, spelled O''OLE. I thought to myself, that's a very strange name. So as the guy came to the door, we got chatting, and he seemed quite friendly. So I said, do you mind me asking, was that house name on the house when you moved in? He said, no. I said, no, why did you put that there? He said, my surname's Button. So we had a good laugh. And it's good to get people laughing on the doorstep if you can. People like humour. Right, next slide please. So when I start asking people questions, I want to find out where they are spiritually. So someone is an atheist, they believe there's no God in them, they may be an agnostic, maybe there's a God, maybe not. Then someone believes in God, initial awareness of Christianity, awareness of the fundamentals of Christianity, grasp of the basic facts of the gospel. I mean, that's quite a big step to get from believing there's a God down to understanding the basic facts. And then a positive attitude to the gospel. That's a big step as well. And also the next one, awareness of personal need. And then we can move on to challenge and decision to act, repentance and faith, and potential new discipleship is born. So when we're talking to people, I want to find out where they are on that list. I mean, not everyone goes in that exact path, but generally people tend to move down in that way. So I want to ask questions to find out where they are. So that's the aim. Next slide, please. So these are sort of questions. Once you've got some initial conversation going, some people will come to the door and want to talk, which is fine. So you're looking for those that are happy to chat for a little bit. So after you've had your initial conversation, what spiritual beliefs do you have? I mean, they know you're coming from the local church, so it's not an unusual question. It makes it easier than walking up to someone on the street, perhaps. Who do you believe Jesus is? Or who is Jesus to you? How much of the Bible have you read? I mean, if someone says they're a Christian, but they don't go to church, that's a really good question to ask. How much of the Bible have you read? They might have read hardly any, or they might have read a lot, but not going to church at the moment for some reason. Have you been to a local church? If so, which one? You might find out they're a Catholic, so you wonder whether they really are born again or not. So you can ask some more questions. And if they say something a bit out of the ordinary, then you can say, do you mind me asking, what makes you believe that? Especially if they've said something you know is not true from the Bible. There's a guy I was speaking to yesterday said that the Bible is written down by change of mouth. They said one thing, and then you keep translating and then translating that translation. So that's an interesting idea. Where did you get that idea from? And it sort of draws out where they're coming from. Helps you to answer, correct them a bit easier. So lots of questions you could ask, but I'd encourage you, if you're going to do this regularly, to pray about what questions you can ask on a doorstep, and what questions does God want you to use on the doorsteps, because each area is different. And then as well, when you're actually talking to someone, Lord, what question do you want me to ask next? Just to try and find out where people are at. As well, as listening well as well, as we spoke to earlier. Other questions you could ask. Do you feel close or far from God at the moment? That's a really good question to ask. If people profess to be a believer. Then you might want to ask, who do you know who's a Christian? Because if someone knows a Christian, we maybe ask one or two questions to find out whether that person really is a Christian or not. And that's helpful, because they said, oh, I know Mary down the road, she's a Christian, so I ask her questions to find out. But you want to know whether Mary really is a real Christian or not. So gently asking some more questions. You might be talking to a Muslim, and they said Jesus was only a prophet. And you said, well, why do you believe Jesus is only a prophet? You know, just trying to get to the background of things. Actually, when I'm talking to Muslims, I tend to say, who do you think Jesus is? And they say a prophet. And I say, well, that's right. He is a prophet. Don't you think it's worth finding out what this prophet of yours said? And would you like this John's Gospel to read?
Yeah.
Because I want to get them to read John's Gospel. And when we ask you a more personal question, it's really helpful to say, can I ask, and then say the question. It seems to be much more acceptable to say it in that way. Can I ask, what do you think happens when you die? Or can I ask, do you think you'll be going, how do I put it? Can I ask, if you were to die tonight, heaven forbid, and came before the gates of heaven, and Jesus said to you, why should I let you in? What would you say? That's how I say it sometimes. But saying, can I ask first, when it's a personal question, seems to be much more acceptable. People are generally quite happy to answer it in that way. If someone invites you in, which is quite rare these days, but it does happen, I'd always err on the sake of caution. If you feel it's not the right thing to do, then don't. However, I think there was only one time I didn't go in when someone invited me in, so I generally do want to go in, because sitting down in front of someone over a cup of tea, you can have a really good conversation. And generally, if they've invited you in, they want to talk further. So generally, it's a good thing to do. If there's two of you, but it's normally quite safe. But if you just feel, you're sort of relying on the Holy Spirit to check you. So it's just being aware. And just sending a text to someone, just letting them know, oh, we've been invited into number so, just so people know where you are. It's just for your own safety. It's always best to have a man and a woman together if possible. It works perfectly all right with two women or two men, but I think one of each sex is best, the best combination if that's possible. Well, we talked about that this morning, listening carefully, but I can't overestimate how important listening is when we're talking to people, and asking good questions and really listening well. I've always wanted people to talk and find out, because people like talking about themselves generally, and it makes them feel valued and draws people to you. If you do start having a good conversation with people, I'd encourage you not to overstay your welcome, especially if you're invited in. I've always wanted to leave before the conversation come to a conclusion, because I want to go back the second time. So I might say at an appropriate moment, well, we ought to get going now, we've got more people to go and visit. But it's been really interesting talking to you. I'd love to have another chat with you sometime. I usually leave it open like that because I don't want to ask, can I come back and see you again, because they might turn around and say no. Yeah. Never knock on the door again. Yeah, and then when you go back, they're not surprised to see you if you say it in that way. So that's a really good way of doing it, I found. So don't overstay your welcome. Try and I might not always say everything I could say, but I'm trying to build a relationship and can say more the next time. And the great thing about making a note on those cards of any follow-up is you can use that as a prayer, your prayers before you go out next time as well. Be praying about what literature you might take